Hey folks, E-Chip and Rob are in the shop, and today we are going to make the instrument panel for the new solar generator. Got a lot to do, gonna have some fun. Stick around with us.
I get to play with the power tool. What?
Now folks, I already predetermined the size of this panel based upon my needs and the things that are gonna go into it. I need to have space in this panel to hold the remote display for both the new inverter and for the Outback charge controller that I have. And then I also need spaces for all of those outlets and even a few more. We drew it out on a piece of paper first, and then we figured out where things were going to go. So this is for the charge. This hole will be for the charge controller. This will be for the inverter, which we temporarily named Baby. And then I'll have a 2-inch hole I need to drill for the 50 amp 220 outlet, and a 1.5 inch hole I need to drill out for the 20 amp 220 outlet, and then placeholders for 6 15 and 20 amp receptacles. So a little extra space here for the future in case I want to put in a couple of ammeters to measure amperage and output kilowatts, all those fun things. And then maybe a little extra space in here sometime in case we want to put in something like a cigarette lighter type DC plug. So now folks, as you've seen, we're going to use these particular receptacles on. I like them because they have this little rectangular face. They're nice and flat, no contours in them. And that's what I like about them. We'll use these in the panel. And we're going to use them without a receptacle cover plate by installing them directly in this panel. This will be like our panel cover. The way we want to get these holes nice and pretty in order to fit in here properly is we build a template. Built this little router template out of just scrap wood I had around, and then I sized it obviously to fit the receptacle. It's just a little bit bigger than the receptacle, and the reason for that is because I'm going to use a router to route out the opening. And as you can see, this router has the router bit in it, which will cut the sides of the opening so we can pop them out. But then you'll notice also this little bushing in here. This little bushing will actually ride along the inside edges of this template in order for us to get the right cut. Now there is a tiny bit of distance between the cutting edge of the router bit and the inside of this template, as you can see. And we need to account for that distance by actually making this template slightly larger than the receptacle that it's going to hold, than the hole's going to hold, so that we get a nice tight fit. And so that's what I've done. I've made it just a couple millimeters larger to account for this distance in between. And so we'll go ahead and cut these holes out and test our fit. But let's try it on a piece of scrap first, just to make sure we've got the right size.
There's our sample hole.
Did a great job, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was fun.
And let's test the fit. Let's see if it fits.
Let's see if I did do a good job.
And what we want is a nice snug fit, and that pops in there beautifully.
Yay.
Nice and snug. Just what we want. Now I've already made marks here where I want the relative positions of these outlets on this panel. And of course I've marked my template with a reference corner to line these up with. So I just simply take the template, line it up on these lines. Okay. And then ordinarily I would use some double-sided tape or something like that, where I would tape this template down to hold it in place while I ran the router over it. In this case I'm just going to use little brads that I have to hold this template in place. I can use brads, and I'm not afraid of putting a hole into this plate, this panel wood, because I'm going to cover the wood later with a nice piece of shiny aluminum to make it pretty. All right, you ready, Robert?
Go for it. Eat
Let's
chip.
go. Sorry, folks. Glasses. Safety glasses.
Let's see. Did it make a hole?
I hope so. I felt cutting.
Oh, it did.
Did make a hole. Let me vacuum it out. That piece you see in the middle is the sacrificial piece that I put underneath the panel so that I'm not cutting directly into the bench.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up to be a nice clean hole there.
Yay.
Yeah, very nice. You want to do one, Robert?
I do, I do. Oh, I poked my holes bigger. Oh no, I missed. I didn't get all the way. I missed a little right
Okay,
there.
then put it in there. And
I
do it
missed
again.
a little.
Yep, let's see how it
Okay.
goes. Nice job, Robert.
Thank you.
You have fun?
I did.
You see we've got 6 nice pretty outlet holes here in our panel. And so done with that for now. But now we've got to cut these 2 out. These are large enough, and also the fact that they'll be covered by plates, these holes will, means that I didn't really want to bother to cut a template for them. I can do these freehand, and even if there's a little bit of imperfection on the edges, that's okay because these holes will be covered with covers anyway. So we'll just do this freehand. It'll be fine.
Success. It looks like a picture frame.
Sort of, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Little E-chip robber, E-chip robber, E-chip robber.
Mm-hmm.
And then E-chip and robber.
Yep.
And then a picture of baby.
One,
Baby the inverter. Now for the test robber. This should be really snug.
Oh, I like it.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's set in a little bit. Maybe it's a little recessed. And with the kind of veneer we're going to put on here, I wonder if we shouldn't take away some material from the back side here so that this part sits further down in. I just want to make sure that when we plug things into this, that the surface of the plug isn't caught on the edge of this wood and doesn't seat up nice and firmly with the face of the outlet. Robert and I went out last night and this is what we decided on. Nice piece of shiny aluminum flashing, but it's got a pretty finish on it, and we can clean it up after it's installed and put a nice pretty finish on there that'll keep it nice for a long time to come. Now what we're doing is just taking off the high spots on this paper template that we glued on here. The veneer we're putting on here is really thin, and so we don't want any kind of raised areas or anything like that from this template to show through when we glue it down. Now folks, so I've got some multi-purpose adhesive here. It bonds to wood, metal, paper, just about everything there is. And so I'm going to spray both this down. I'm going to spray down a piece of aluminum and let them sit for a few minutes and then roll them together nice and tight. See how it goes. You have to make sure this is right because boy, once it's down, there's no fixing it. Folks, this is a J-roller. It's used for gluing down laminate countertops and things like that. Take this, roll it in one direction. Okay? Typically from the center out. Rolling it like that doesn't really do you a lot of good. Just provide nice, firm pressure to the piece. Make sure you get good adhesion. I've got the paper over this to protect the aluminum finish from anything that may be on this J-roller. So we've got pretty good adhesion here, and as you can see, we've got our holes here. We'll take a really sharp X-Acto knife. Since this stuff is very thin, it cuts very easily with a very sharp box cutter type knife. And we'll just cut these out, make it all pretty. Remember, nice, sharp X-Acto knife, very thin aluminum this is. It's basically a veneer. It's just a thin piece of flashing. So we'll go ahead, cut it. Might have to take a couple passes to get it, but we'll get it. See the man in the hot, humid Southwest who wishes he were at contentment.
Oh, babe, that looks amazing.
We'll have to clean it up a little bit, but came out all right. Smooth it out so we don't cut our hands on it. And let's test it. That'll look pretty nice when it's ready.
I like it, babe.
I like it too. Nice snug fit, just the way we want it. Up on the Outback. There's that. Oh, got a little bit more trimming to do here, it appears. Now, folks, I'm using a Forstner bit on this because it makes a nice, pretty, clean hole. And you'll notice I'm drilling this right into the aluminum. This bit's fairly sharp. It's designed for, wood, but this veneer is so thin that I'm going to pass through it right away, and then I'll tear off that piece of veneer and keep drilling through the wood. So here we go. All right, folks, so I'm just going to clean the front of the panel up a little bit with some acetone. That'll help clean off any residual glue, prep the surface, make it really pretty, get it ready for a finish or anything we want to do to it. The reason I'm making a panel like this is because in a large piece of mobile equipment like a trailer, the last thing I want to do if I want quick access to controls for this equipment that's inside is have to climb in the trailer to do it. I want to be able to, particularly in emergency, I want to be able to get out there and be able to manage all this as easily as I can from the outside. So creating this exterior access panel for the trailer so that at a glance we can just see what's going on with the equipment inside. And now we'll cover this with a couple of good coats of clear lacquer and be done. This is clear lacquer, folks. It's just to protect the aluminum. Over time, the aluminum can, even though it sort of has a finish on, it's got a brushed look, it can get sort of corroded and chalky looking over time. This is just a little extra insurance to make sure it stays looking decent. A couple coats of this. Please remember to use adequate ventilation when you spray lacquer. I'm not doing this outside because dust and wind and everything will affect this poorly, but rest assured we got good ventilation in here. So we'll spray a couple coats on this and let it sit before we put it together. By the way, lacquer will tend to yellow things over time. That's the way it is. I'm okay with it. Just getting ready to install the remote panel for the Outback. I think what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of these screws left over from other projects I'm going to use to install it. And sometimes you would just think of just screwing a wood screw into these panels, but with the wiring and all that's going to go on behind it, probably not a good idea. But so I'm going to put a little nut behind it, and then also I'm going to use a little service removable Loctite on the threads to make sure they hold in place, since Vibration's always an issue in a piece of mobile equipment. What do you think, Robert?
I think it's awesome. Let's hold it up and show the world.
Look what I made in craft today. Got a little scratched up putting it together. Oh well, it'll do the job.
I think it's awesome, babe.
It's not gonna be beautiful, but it does the job. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome.